Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's Scion Life back here with another video, and today we are going to be talking about 5 underrated muscle cars. Now, in this video, there are no V6s allowed. Of course, this is hashtag America, and this list is in no particular order. But before we begin the video, I would like you to go to your local pond, catch a fish, and scream at the fish until it likes this video and subscribes to Scion Life. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the video. And for the first car on this list, we are going to be talking about the fourth generation Pontiac Firebird. And this car was produced from 1993 until 2002. In the earlier models, they had a 5.7-liter LT1 with 275 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. But in the later years, starting in the year 1999, they dropped in a glorious LS1, which made 310 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. Now, this car did weigh 3,500 pounds, but 340 horsepower in the very late 90s and early 2000s was a lot of power. And of course, my dad had one of these. He had one with the LT1 in it, and it was awesome. I wish he still had the car today. But these cars with both motors, with both the LT1 and the LS1, they are very reliable and easy engines to build, and they are straight line monsters. They have a lot of good aero on them, and they're really easy to supercharge and turbo, just boost in general, even putting on a nitrous oxide kit, and they will absolutely fly. Now, I found good condition ones for well under 10K. Most sit around the 5 to 7K mark. And I do believe that this car will be a future collectible, especially the Trans Ams. And I do think that prices will rise in the future as electric cars take over. And now, as we move on to the second car on this list, we're going to be talking about the Ford Mustang S95, but not the one you would immediately think of. We're not going to be talking about the new edges. We're going to be talking about the pre-facelift models, which was produced from 1994 until 1998. And of course, only the GT models, as V6s suck, especially in the 90s. But this car came with a 5-liter V8 that made 215 horsepower, which isn't bad. Even by today's standards, it's a little slow, but back in the mid-90s, it was a pretty good horsepower number. And it made 285 pound-feet of torque, and it weighed 3,280 pounds. Now, unfortunately, this was the last Mustang that came with a pushrod V8, and we were very sad as car guys to see this car go. Now, even though this car wasn't the prettiest car, the engine really made up for it. As I said, it was a pushrod V8. It was extremely reliable and durable. And there are pre-facelift SN95s that are built to over 500 horsepower and can run a 10-second quarter mile, which is pretty good considering they retail around $7,500 today for a very clean model. So this car, it's a very great car. It's a very great first car because it's something you can grow into. You can modify it over time and progressively get faster. And for the third entry on this list, we're going to be talking about the fifth generation of the Pontiac GTO. This car was produced from 2004 until 2006, but we don't talk about the 2004 years. They had reliability issues, and the motor was not super great as it was in the 05 and 06 years. So we're going to focus on the last 2 years of production with this car. Now, this car did have a very short stint of production. There's not a ton of them made, but in the 04 model, it came with an LS1, which was alright. And then in the 05s and 06 model, Pontiac stepped it up and dropped in an LS2, which made 400 horsepower and actually came in a manual. Now, the only pitfall of this car is it weighed 3,700 pounds, which is a little on the heavy side compared to everything else on this list, but you do get an awesome LS2 and 400 horsepower in, a Pontiac from the mid-2000s. Now, both the motors, the LS1 and the LS2, have massive building potential, but the LS2 is a bit stronger reliability-wise, durability-wise, and you can push, boost, and power a bit safer in the LS2 models. It's why I'm more referring to those whenever I talk about the 5th Gen GTO. Now, I have no clue, honestly, why this car flies under the radar. It is a absolute monster in the right hands. I've seen a couple of them around where I live, and they absolutely fly. They sound amazing because it's an LS, and I'm not really sure why people don't buy them and why the prices aren't super elevated on these cars, because they're very limited, came with an LS, and they're just very fun to drive. And moving on to the fourth car on this list, we are going to throw it back all the way to the year 1971 and talk about the Dodge Dart Demon. Yes, at one point in time, the Dodge Dart was actually cool. Hashtag make darts great again. But in this car, they dropped in a 198 horsepower slant six, which was very lame and very boring. Of course, this was moving into the 70s with the oil embargo, whatever. But Dodge did beef it up a little bit for us car enthusiasts. They also gave some of the models a beastly 340 cubic inch V8. Now, this 340 V8 made 320 horsepower, and it was a torque monster, making 368 pound-feet of torque at 3,300 pounds. Now, the pros for this car, and I think that there are a lot of pros. I could go on for a long time about this car. It's very beautiful. But the things I really like about it that stand out are the classic muscle car styling. That's awesome, of course. It's awesome to cruise in. It is a gorgeous car, and it's just really great and affordable alternative to the Nova SS, which at the time period and even today, kind of in the upper echelon of street racing, it's kind of like the car to beat when it comes to classic builds. But in my opinion, this is a timeless, underrated classic that you can cruise in, you can take to shows, and it's just really awesome to have. And now for the last car on the list. This is honestly my personal favorite out of all five of these cars. And we're going to be talking about the C4 Chevrolet Corvette, which was produced from 1984 to 1996. But mainly in this video, I'm talking about the 1992 to 1996 model, which came with an LT1, which was in the Firebird that we mentioned earlier. But this one only came with 300 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. Now, the reason why this car is so underrated is the styling is not cool at all. Like, it's not a 90s Ferrari. It doesn't have like a retro feel to it, and so people just don't really pick these up like I think that they should. This car is not a showstopper by any means. The interior sucked. It is a GM product from the 90s. Of course it's going to suck. And this car is just nothing special. It's just the average Joe's sports car. And that's what I think I really like about it. Because it's very reliable, it's surprisingly quick, and it's a very durable engine. And as I mentioned earlier with the Pontiac, you can build it to make some, really big power numbers. Now, this is the only car on this list that can take a corner at any kind of speed. And it's not even really a cornering car, but it's the only one that has some kind of aerodynamics to where it can turn and not feel like you're driving on some marbles or something. Now, the prices for these cars are around $5,000, but with the introduction of the new C8 generation of Corvettes, with GM going mid-engine with the Corvette, I do believe that this price can only go up in the future, so I would grab one before prices do indeed go up. And for those of you who are kind of out there looking for cheap or more under the radar muscle cars, I hope that this video helped you out and that you were able to learn a thing or two from it. But as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, and if you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing and following along for more content like this. But for now, this is Scion Life, signing out.